Thank you. Grateful. So I begin all my yoga classes with tuning in with a particular mantra, and the mantra is Ong Namo Gurudev Namo. Ong, O-N-G, it means basically the creative consciousness. Namo is like bowing to, like namaste. Ong Namo, I bow to the creative consciousness. Gurudev, these divine teachings. Namo, I bow to these divine teachings. So if you would join me, we're going to tune in, we'll chant it 3 times together. If you're new to it, just do the best you can. By the second round, you'll probably jump right in. So rub your palms together at the heart center. Sit up nice and tall, close your eyes. Bring the thumbs to the sternum. Take a deep inhale. Exhale. And inhale to begin. Om Namo Gurudev Namo. Om Namo Gurudev. Take a deep inhale and exhale. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Tommy Rosen and I teach yoga for recovery. I am 19 years sober. I was at one point deeply involved in drugs and alcohol in my life, and it took me to places I didn't want to go. As I got sober, I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Originally I went away for 30 days, actually turned into 40 or 50 days, and then I came and I involved myself and I sort of aligned my life to Alcoholics Anonymous. I just want to quickly say, I am not the voice of Alcoholics Anonymous in any way, shape, or form. Anything you hear from me right now is just simply my opinion and my experience. But does anybody here know what happened to alcoholics and drug addicts before there was an AA or a place like that? Does anybody know? Yeah.
They went to the mental institutions.
Well, that's actually true. Alcoholics, for centuries, doctors and psychologists, physicians tried to deal with alcoholics and drug addicts, and really to no avail. So if you had a major drug problem or alcohol problem, you were destined for one of several institutions. Basically, jail was going to certainly be one of those stops, hospitals, ultimately the sanitarium. So in 1935, when Bill W., the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, was struck with the inspiration to create Alcoholics Anonymous and to write the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, a spiritual path, giving addicts a design for living which could help them through their hurdles and challenges, that was a miraculous, miraculous thing. Because before then, there was nothing. After then, after that moment, after 1935, what we've seen is millions of lives have come around. Now, one of the challenges, here we are in 2010, we're 75 years later. Alcoholics Anonymous has not changed at all. Now, that could be a good thing to some people, and other people like myself might say, maybe there's room for an upgrade in there somewhere. And this is nothing against Alcoholics Anonymous. It has saved millions of people's lives, and other programs like Cocaine Anonymous, Al-Anon, Narcotics Anonymous, etc. But there's room for an upgrade. And what I've seen in my sobriety and what I've seen in working with people over the last 19 years is basically once an addict or alcoholic deals with their primary addiction, like you put drugs and alcohol down, there's this sort of attitude, speaking generally, that these other petty addictions are okay. I can smoke cigarettes now because I got rid of what was really killing me and what was making my life unmanageable. I can eat addictively. I can treat food as a drug, and that's okay because I got rid of the thing that was really killing me. and then all the other addictions you come across from, oh my goodness, sex, drugs, the way you relate to money, the way you relate to people, the way you relate to drama, the way you relate to yourself. So what we're talking about here is trying to get people to realize once they're sober, once they're in a course of recovery, maybe there's a way to not have to go through every single addiction that might pull you. Maybe there's a quicker way to have true recovery. And by true recovery, I simply mean, how do you wake up in the morning? How do you face yourself? How do you go out into the world and engage with the world? Can you do it with a sense of contentment? Can you do it with a sense of consciousness? Can you make mistakes and realize it, clean up those mistakes, and then move forward and learn from them? Or do you tend to make those same mistakes day in and day out, maybe not realize it, or maybe realize it but not know how to get out of it, not know how to be unstuck in it? So what I've found and what I've discovered is yoga and meditation were the perfect complement to recovery. And in my classes, what I'm teaching now is a combination of vinyasa flow. So we start with 40 minutes of flow. We get people really, really sweaty. We get them into their bodies and into their breath. And then we drop into Kundalini yoga. So we'll do a Kriya of Kundalini yoga, which is super powerful. And I like to say to people, addicts are people who really like to get high, you know? And just because they're sober doesn't mean they don't still like to get high. In fact, I could extend that to people. People like to get high and like to feel the sensation of being, you know, elevated and uplifted. Yoga and meditation do that. Kundalini yoga in particular very surgically, you know, uplifts the consciousness and uplifts the spirit. It's amazing. And then after the Kundalini, we'll drop into a meditation, teach people how to sit, and then we'll lay them out. And then finally, we'll have a community meeting, a community gathering. Now, I don't have much time to talk to you today. I normally would speak to you for 90 minutes, but I have 15 minutes. So I'm going to leave a few minutes at the end for questions, but there's a couple of ideas I want to leave you with today. First idea is this concept of disease, right? Now, I'm talking to people who are in recovery, and I'm talking to anybody else who's just a human being. Just raise your hand if you're a human being, you know, just a show of hands. Cool, I have some of my people here. Well, some of you may be in recovery, and others of you are just interested in the topic, or maybe you've been touched in some way by somebody who's become a sober person or whose life has been touched by addiction. The disease concept, okay? People ask me, tell me about your problem with drugs and alcohol. And I say, well, my problem really wasn't with drugs and alcohol. My problem existed long before drugs and alcohol came into the system. For me, I had this feeling of restlessness, irritability, discontent. And when I found drugs and alcohol, it was the perfect medicine for me. It just absolutely worked for my life. I was 13 years old, and when I first found drugs and alcohol, I felt, wow, you know, this is the first time I've taken a deep breath in my entire life. This is the first time I didn't feel a sense of anxiety. So I really feel like I was built for it when I came to it. 11 years later, when I gave up drugs and alcohol, and all that was taken away, I felt that same sense of discomfort, irritability, and discontent. You see, I had never dealt with the core issues of my life. And as I went through a period of, for me, maybe 10, 11, 12 years of sobriety, and I learned more about myself, well, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I had some successes along the way, and I felt a lot of pain, and I felt a lot of joy along the way. But I feel like at 12 years sober, when I found Kundalini yoga and meditation, and I found other forms of yoga and made those a part of my recovery process, not something that I could take or leave, but something that was integrated into my life, all of a sudden my life started to change in drastic ways. And ways that I had suffered, things that I just couldn't figure out, ways of thinking. All of a sudden I was just thinking better. My vibration was higher, if you will. And, you know, I like to say, you know, addiction is a disease of the mind. The second sutra in the Yoga Sutras, you know, yoga is the calming of the fluctuations of the mind. Well, if recovery, like 12-step recovery, is all about dealing with addiction, and yoga is saying, it's all about calming the mind, well, those two things, are parallel paths, right? Maybe we could bring them together and work together and bring ourselves to a calmer place. So addicts have a core problem, when they try to get sober. They all think that they're going to think the way they think for the rest of their entire life. And they know that the way they've been thinking has led them to a very painful place. And they think, I don't know how I'm going to think differently. And you realize one can't think themselves out of this problem of addiction. So things have to happen. You have to take action. You have to begin to learn how to breathe. You have to begin to learn how to move your body physically through time and space. You have to begin to connect with the highest part of yourself. In 12-step programs, they'd say connect with your higher power. In yogic realms, they might say connecting the God part of yourself, or the finite part of yourself with the infinite part of yourself, right? So everything in this disease concept is about taking somebody who's distanced from ease, right? Dis-ease, you're long distance from ease, and you want to close that gap between ease and pain. And you close that gap, and you move yourself towards the ease. Anybody can tell me what the word asana means? Asana? It's at the end of all the yoga poses? That's right, the comfortable seat. So in yoga, in the physical postures, we're always in search of the comfortable seat. In addiction, it's the same thing. In recovery, we're always trying to find peace of mind. And it goes way beyond addicts, right? So anybody here, anybody here feel like, by a show of hands, it's important, you've never had a problem with any substance or person or place or thing that you couldn't figure out? Anybody have never had a problem with anything like that? Raise your hand. Great. So in one way, shape, or form, we can all relate to the idea that there's things that will happen to us in our lives that we can't immediately figure out, that we're going to need teachers for, or lessons for, or we're going to need some kind of way to navigate through those challenges so that we can grow to the next level. I have found yoga to be that for me, and for the people that I'm teaching. I like to tell them, stack the odds in your favor. You've got a sense of dis-ease, right? Your distance from ease. Yoga's all about moving towards the ease, the comfortable seat. Let's find that comfortable seat. Stack the odds in your favor. Practice every day. They're like, well, I don't really have time. It's like, well, if you're going to meetings and you're doing things that are good for you, see, I really want people to get the idea that yoga in recovery, it's not sort of like, oh yeah, I'll try yoga in recovery. I'm so passionate about it, I feel that it makes the difference and can make the difference between people who are in recovery not having to engage in other destructive behaviors, and also not having to relapse on what caused them a lot of difficulty in the first place. Does this make sense to you guys? So everybody in this room has had a powerful experience through yoga at some point in their yoga career. Everybody here, otherwise you wouldn't find yourself at this festival. Yoga has touched you deeply. So imagine for you, whether you're an addict in recovery or not, whether you're just a human being that has hurdles from time to time and you use yoga to address those hurdles, that feeling you've had when you've laid out in Shavasana of clarity, of release, of peace and calmness, that's a feeling that most people in recovery, when they come into recovery for the first time, have never ever had. So you can imagine they don't understand there's an upgrade. And once you're in recovery for a long time, maybe you're doing a lot of these other petty addictions and your behaviors are not maybe up to par for what your highest self would like it to be, but you don't know any better. You haven't been given the upgrade, and the upgrade is yoga and meditation. I want to finish because I know we don't have much time. There's a concept called Prehab. I love it. If we all go to Prehab, we don't have to end up in rehab, okay? And Prehab is simply this. You learn to sit, you learn to stand, and you learn to walk in Prehab. You learn to sit on the earth, and you learn to connect with the earth, and you learn to sit still in the comfortable seat. You learn to stand, you learn what you stand for as a human being, as a man or a woman, what you're doing here on this planet. What are you standing for? What are you speaking? How are you interacting? What are you doing? What's your livelihood? How do you eat? How do you interact with everything and everybody in your life? You learn those things in Prehab, right? And then you learn what you're walking towards. And you know, for me, ultimately, I'm a soul in a meat suit named Tommy Rosen, and I'm going to be here until this meat suit gives out, and then my soul is going to return to the essence, the source, the spirit of all things. That's where I feel I'm headed towards. Whatever your conception of that is, it's correct. Whatever your conception of that is for you, it's absolutely 100% correct. My perception of that has changed over time. But with regards to yoga and recovery, I'll leave you with this. Anybody who's in pain, suffering, particularly with regards to substances, their distance from themselves, from others, and from God is enormous. So much so that they don't know how they're ever going to bridge that gap. When you take the substances away, they're left with the core dis-ease that they had before they came to their first medicines, if you will. Once those medicines are gone, now they have to deal with the raw truth and the raw reality of themselves. Through time, over time, one day at a time, God willing, they stay sober, stay away from the substances, and they're able to deal with themselves and grow one step at a time, one day at a time. There needs to be a path for that to happen. I would go on the record, I'm here on camera, and I would say that there are 0 cases that I've ever heard of anybody who recovered from sincere drug or alcohol or sex or gambling addiction, who didn't have teachers and a path of recovery to follow. You can't be random, utterly random about recovery. So what I like to say to people is stack the odds in your favor. Practice yoga, practice meditation. If the 12 steps is your path, hit it like it's going to save your life, because it can. If Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever your path is, if it works for you, then live it fully. And you're living in the solution to your problem. You're closing the distance, and you're moving from dis-ease into ease. And that's what I would leave you with today. And the last thought is, for any of you who are in recovery, it's no accident. You're here for a reason. There's no going back. There is no easy way out. The easiest way is the only way, and that's to do your work. Don't run from difficulty and challenge. Stay rooted in your practices. If you're here at this yoga festival, that's also no mistake. It means that I want to leave you with this thought. You are the master class, in recovery or not. You folks who are practicing yoga and meditation, you are the master class on the planet right now. You are the people who have to lead everybody else. It's a huge calling. And people in recovery have a huge calling too, to help other people in recovery. And please do the work that you need to do to continue on your path, whatever that looks like for you. And if you get confused and you get scared, reach out to your sangha, reach out to your congregation, reach out to your community, and surround yourself with people who have your highest interests in mind. Alcoholics Anonymous is a congregation. Yoga classes are a congregation. This festival is a congregation. We're unbelievably blessed to have each other. God bless you all. Thank you so much.